Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Kayfabe AJ live from Kayfabe Avenue, and today we're bringing to you a superstar spotlight. Today I want to speak about none other than the British Bulldog. Now, last year the Hart Foundation was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, but the British Bulldog for some reason was omitted from that induction. Now, maybe they're saving him because he's a special character on his own. I'm hoping that's the case. If not, WWE is making a huge mistake by not recognizing this superstar, recognizing his achievements and the legacy he left behind. Before we get into the countdown, let's give a little backstory on Davey Boy Smith, also known as the British Bulldog. He was born on November 27, 1962 in Goulburn, Lancashire, England. He was the husband of Diana Hart, fathered 2 children. He stood at 5 feet 11 inches at 260 pounds, trained by the legendary Stu Hart. He debuted in the mainstream in 1978, wrestled all the way to the year 2000. He started wrestling at the age of 15 alongside his cousin, the Dynamite Kid, who is also a legendary person on his own right. He was trained also by Ted Bentley in Winwick, England, which was his first trainer. Shortly after, he caught the eye of Bruce Hart, Stu's brother. He moved to Calgary, Alberta, Canada to pursue his training and to continue pursuing his passion for wrestling. That's where he met his wife Diana, and they married in 1984. Trained under Stu Hart in the legendary Dungeon, which has produced more wrestling machines than any other place on the planet, he would join Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling, where he would start making his mark that will make this following list even possible. Here are the top 10 reasons why the British Bulldog should join the 2020 WWE Hall of Fame. Coming in at number 10, we have the legacy that he left behind. On top of the various accolades and achievements that we'll go over on this list, he left behind 2 children, one of those being David Hart Smith Jr. Now, D.H. Smith, to WWE fans, he's been all over the world. He's been in WWE, he's been in MLW, he's been in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's even formed his own stable alongside Teddy Hart and Brian Pillman Jr. to form the New Foundation, which is an ode to the Hart Foundation, which his father was a part of. D.H. Smith carries the tradition of the British Bulldog in every match he goes into, down to the wrestling style, even down to the in-ring gear. He carries his father's legacy in every match he's in every promotion he's been in around the world. And that's why this is easily number 10. At number 9, we have the various federations that the British Bulldog has been in. Now, British Bulldog has been all over the world. He's wrestled in Europe, he's wrestled in Japan, he's wrestled in the Americas, but the list of actual promotions he's been in is extensive. So I narrowed down to the kind of most important ones that people might know. Starting off with Stampede Wrestling, Stu Hart's baby, where he started his career at. He's jumped to WWF, he's been in WCW. He was in ECW before it became Extreme and was known as Eastern Championship Wrestling. He was in New Japan Pro Wrestling and also their rival, All Japan Pro Wrestling. He's wrestled all over the world and is recognized by millions of fans from multiple generations. That's why this is number 9. At number 8, we have the Hart Foundation and also him jumping ship with Bret Hart. Now, the Hart Foundation is a legendary stable, one of the staples of WWF Attitude of the new generation they had. So much so that last year they inducted the Hart Foundation, but they left the British Bulldog out. I can't really describe the reasoning behind it, but I'm gonna chop it up to maybe Jim Neidhart's death. They didn't want to, overshadow Jim Neidhart's death being so fresh. So maybe they left out British Bulldog to, showcase him in his own in a future Hall of Fame. But he was a big part of the Hart Foundation and many of their storylines, and he was the real life family member to Bret and to Owen, and also Jim Neidhart, who was also married into the family. So this was a real life connection on TV that we got to witness from week to week. When Bret Hart defended his WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series, they made that pay-per-view known as the Montreal Screwjob. During that Screwjob, Bret Hart was supposed to win. He was also at the end of his contract with WWF, and Vince didn't want him going over. So last minute they had the ref count a submission that didn't happen, causing Bret Hart to lose, and in turn giving the WWF Championship to the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. In this move, Bret Hart made it clear to the fans he's jumping ship to WCW. And this was a big impact, not only to Vince and the WWF, but in the long term with the Monday Night Wars of WCW and WWF. The British Bulldog had a hand in both companies, the successes, and this was a pivotal moment where the gears started shifting towards WCW, and the 83-week rating win for WCW started to, was already happening. So this is why it was number 8. The Hart Foundation was a big part of history, big part of WCW, and the British Bulldog was right there in the mix. At number 7, we have the 1995 Royal Rumble match. Now, the British Bulldog didn't win this match, even though for a short period we did think he won, throwing Shawn Michaels over the top rope. Shawn Michaels would make this moment famous, where he would skin the cat, as the term would be called, and barely touch the ground with one foot not touching the mat, giving the Royal Rumble the first ever moment where they would had to bring in the refs and actually judge and speculate whether someone's feet caused an elimination. This would come into play in future Royal Rumble matches, where we have Kofi Kingston's and John Morrison's and the Naomi's going out there and finding new ways to scale the outside area and not get eliminated. British Bulldog was a big part of this even being a thing in the Royal Rumble match. Him and Shawn Michaels made history in that Royal Rumble, and it was the first of many times we'll see something like this. At number 6, we have the Dungeon / Stampede Wrestling. Now, for any die-hard wrestling fan, they know the Dungeon was the place to either get stretched out or to become a star. And British Bulldog was one of those lucky people to go into the Dungeon and succeed, along the likes of Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, the Hart family itself, Lance Storm. A bunch of people have come out of the Dungeon, and these are the best technical wrestlers on the planet. British Bulldog was one of those guys. Very technical, very strong. He could give it to you any way in the ring. Now, being a part of the Dungeon, naturally he had the working relationship with Stu, and also being a part of the family at this point, he was working for Stampede Wrestling. During his run in Stampede Wrestling, he would get his first ever title in professional wrestling, winning the European mid-heavyweight championship, beating the Dynamite Kid, which is also his cousin, and gaining his first title in the world of professional wrestling. Speaking of Dynamite Kid, at number 5, we have the British Bulldogs. Now, it wasn't just his moniker, it was the name of his tag team alongside Dynamite Kid. They made that tag team famous all over the world, tagging in New Japan Pro Wrestling, tagging in the WWF. The British Bulldog would later on go back to WWF in one of his many stints that he jumped ship or went to another company, and the British Bulldog name became exclusive to the WWF and Davey Boy Smith. So Dynamite Kid could no longer use the British Bulldog name. The British Bulldogs were also a legendary tag team and won the WWF tag team titles. And British Bulldog himself is a multiple-time tag team champion with different partners, one of them being famously Owen Hart. At number 4, we have the first and only time that the European Championship main evented a pay-per-view. At, funny enough, the pay-per-view One Night Only in 1997. Now, the European Championship was something that us Attitude Era fans, we loved that title. It was beautiful, and British Bulldog was one of those people that made it relevant and made it important to the culture of WWF and made it an important part of the show. At number 3, we have British Bulldog winning the Intercontinental Championship against Bret Hart in SummerSlam 1992. Now, Bret Hart and British Bulldog, their legacies are pretty much combined. Of course, like we mentioned, they are part of the same family, with British Bulldog marrying in to the family, marrying Bret's sister. But these two went out, they had a classic, and this title change happened in London in the Wembley Stadium in front of 80,355 people. Now, that's WrestleMania numbers. And arguably, WrestleMania nowadays isn't even making those kind of numbers. You know, inflation. But that aside, winning various titles, the Intercontinental Championship, especially in that time, was known as the next guy up. The IC title was the champion's champion. It was the person everybody knew was getting positioned for the main event spotlight. He was a guaranteed future WWF champion. Now, unfortunately, the British Bulldog would never gain a major heavyweight championship, almost winning one in WCW, but later the decision got reversed. But the IC title was a staple in a lot of people's careers, and the British Bulldog was pivotal in making the IC title very important in WWF history. At number 2, we have a feat that not many wrestlers can actually say. This man has been a champion in 3 different decades, wrestling from 1980, 1990, and into the early 2000s. British Bulldog had a long career, and unfortunately, it was cut short in 2002 with his untimely death. He suffered a heart attack, and we lost the British Bulldog right in the midst of him gearing up for a return to the ring. But the accolades this man has between hardcore titles, IC titles, European championships, tag team championships, among multiple tournaments, multiple promotions across the planet. This man has wrestled in 3 different decades and has been a champion in every one of those decades. At number 1, we have the inaugural WWF European Champion. In 1997, the British Bulldog won the tournament to be crowned the first ever European Champion. And who else was a better fit? This man literally wore Europe's flag on his trunks, on his boots, all of his gear. He was the epitome of what a European champion can be. And you know what? If this was their way of making him the equivalent of a heavyweight champion, then so be it. Because not only did he make the title illustrious, but the title became well sought out and it was well liked after his inception. The British Bulldog to this day holds the longest reign with 206 consecutive days, and also the longest European Championship reign overall with 253 days as European Champion. Nowadays, the European Championship is retired. This is a belt that honestly I would love for the WWE to bring back. It had a lot of history to it. It was one of those belts that we looked forward to seeing defended on Raws back in the Attitude Era. Many of our favorite stars from the Attitude Era held this title or fought for this title or sought this title out. It was a very popular addition to the brand. It was a very popular addition to the WWF and the history of the WWF. And honestly, we need to see this title brought back, along with the fact that we need the British Bulldog in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's an injustice that he's not in it. It was an injustice that he didn't join when the Hart Foundation was inducted. And at number 1, There can only be one first ever European champion, and it was the British Bulldog. That was the top 10 reasons why the British Bulldog should be inducted into the 2020 WWE Hall of Fame. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. Join us at Kayfabe Avenue on our Facebook group. Like us on Instagram at Kayfabe Avenue, at Kayfabe_AJ, at Kayfabe_Focus. Listen to our brand new podcast on all major streaming platforms, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts. Listen to us at Kayfabe Avenue. This has been your host, Kayfabe AJ, and let's hope that this helps the march towards everybody getting the British Bulldog inducted to the 2020 Hall of Fame. And if not this year, better luck next year. Rest in peace, British Bulldog.